Hello and welcome. This is Enlightened Connections, a space where unseen threads are illuminated between people and spirit, between animals and their humans, and between the everyday and the extraordinary. I'm your host, Lisa Aston Michael, medium, healer, and animal communicator. And I invite you each week to join me as I share conversations and practices that bring light, healing, and connection into your world. Okay, here we go. Welcome. Today I am so delighted to welcome my guest, Kate Solisti. Kate is president of Kinship Enterprises and is dedicated to giving animals a say in their care and in our world. She's a leader in the field of interspecies communication, having translated animals' thoughts, feelings, and needs to caring humans for over 30 years. Kate has authored 6 books, published in 9 languages, and co-edited a 7th with author and playwright Michael Tobias. She's an inspiring teacher and speaker, featured nationally and internationally on stage, radio, and television. She is a recognized expert in dog and cat nutrition, flower essence therapy, and energy healing, addressing the whole animal, body, mind, and spirit. Kate's passion is giving voice to all animals of the animal kingdom so that they can participate with human beings in improving the well-being of all species and the planet. To that end, she hosts a membership community, the Harmony Pack, where people passionate about the non-human beings on Earth are finding their healing and purpose, guided by the animals, while supporting one another through these very challenging times. Kate is also founding member of the International Professional Animal Communicators Association, better known as IPACA, and she lives with her husband Marcus and their 2 fabulous pussycat felines in Vermont. So welcome, Kate. Welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. It's lovely to be here with you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
It's a pleasure. I really don't know where to begin with you. You have so much experience and so much to speak about. So I'm going to kick off with a little about your personal journey. You're so well versed in so many facets of animal communication and animal health. Where do we begin?
Well, we can kind of begin at the beginning. And I think that's a good place to start because I think a lot of people have many of the experiences that I've had and that I know you've had as well. And as a child, I was very open to animals and plants. You know, I perceived it later as like a door was open in my mind and my heart. And I saw the adults around me and the children, most of them, their doors was just closed. It wasn't they didn't have a door. It was just closed. And for some reason, mine was open. And so I was able to just tap in to that. And I do feel it was my intuition that was just open and available. And so I responded to it. And but, you know, when I was a little kid, it was kind of cute when I was very verbal because I was the first kid. And so I would share, you know, well, mommy, the cat said da da da, or the sparrow told me such and such, and the rose bush wanted me to know da 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 da. And of course, you know, when you're little, that's darling, right?
Yeah.
That's so sweet. But as you get older and you start saying things like, well, you know, Mrs. So-and-so really hates her husband.
Oops.
You get in trouble. Yeah, it's like, where did you ever get such an idea? That's ridiculous. And you know, you're little and you've gotten all this emotion from that person, and it seems that is really the case, but that's not what you're supposed to say, and that's not what you're supposed to listen to. And that made me very confused as a kid. But at that time, my dad had given me a beautiful little orange tabby kitten. And he and I, it was love at first sight. And his name was Dusty. And very early on, he said to me, you know, look, let's just do this together and stop sharing with your parents because they just can't understand. And I remember feeling both sad and relieved that I didn't have to talk to them about it, and that Dusty and I could just be together in the garden and listen to the animals in the plants, and I remembered these beautiful conversations that we had that were more than just a little girl and a cat having a chat about, isn't this a pretty drawing? No, they were questions about life and death and, plants changing and, really important conversations. And he was my best friend and the love of my life. But there came a time I was in first grade and I had gone to kindergarten, and I'd love to come home and tell him about what the kids were doing. But in first grade, he said, you really need to apply yourself because you're a person and you need to learn how to read and all that good stuff. And I love you very much, and our work together for now is done. And I thought that was lovely, and I went to sleep. But when I got up in the morning, he wasn't on my bed. And I had a very bad feeling. And I went down to breakfast and I said, Mom, where's Dusty? She said, I haven't seen him this morning because, the cats would go in and out, and I knew something was very wrong. And indeed, he had been hit by a car.
Oh.
And I was devastated. I couldn't imagine living without him. And so I got very sick. And I had to get my tonsils taken out. And this was back in the 1960s. And hospitals were really scary places. Everybody was in white or green, and there was no color on the walls. It was terrifying. But I had this experience. I went under anesthesia, and I felt someone lift me up. Anesthesia is like this weird altered state, right? And I felt somebody lift me up and hold me close. And as I kind of nestled in, I smelled his wonderful scent, and I could feel his fur. And he said, this is not your time. You have work to do, and I will always be here for you. And I came out of anesthesia with a really ripping sore throat, but I made a decision that I was not going to do this anymore, though. I didn't know how without him and my family, who wasn't going to believe me. I just started shutting it down, which is what I think a lot of children do. It doesn't have to be as dramatic a situation like that. It could be people just keep telling you, oh, that's nice, sweetie, but it's your imagination, right?
Yeah. I think we all get to that point, whether it's communicating, hearing with animals or just seeing spirit or whatever. We get to a certain age and it's sort of, it's pushed away from us. It's not nurtured but that was our culture, our society at that time. And nowadays, I feel that the generation below us, their children seem to be more nurtured into these gifts, into their natural abilities, which is a nice thing to see. But I think for us, we were told, children were to be seen and not heard, and especially when it came to things of the unseen or things that were not really accepted at that time as being normal, I suppose, whatever normal, was. Yeah, it's interesting when you're a child. As you were speaking, I was having a little thought. Animals, aren't they funny? When I was a kid, as I'm listening to you about your childhood, I remembered my favourite little fellow was a blue-tongue lizard. And I don't think you have them in the States,
no.
A blue-tongue lizard. And they're basically a little reptile-y thing with a blue tongue, hence the name. But as I got older and, your parents take you to the zoo, that's what happens when you become a tween, The first animal, and I always love asking people this question, which I'm going to ask you in a moment, but the first animal I ran madly to was the Komodo dragon, right? So, and then as I get older, and even now, I have a penchant for snakes. I've never had a fear of snakes. And I actually really love them. And it's funny how that happened as I was listening to you. And I'm wondering, when you were a child and you would have gone to the zoo, you would have been taken there. Did you have an animal that you specifically were drawn to or wanted to say, I want to see the...
That's such a great question. The big cats were always fascinating to me. And I think part of that was, we had little cats. And also, my dad had gone to Princeton, and Princeton University's mascot is a tiger. And tigers were a thing, right? Because of that. And so I have a little stiff tiger that I don't even know how old I was when my dad gave it to me because, that was the thing. It was a Princeton tiger. So from early on, tigers and lions were big cats, but elephants too. I do remember going to a circus as a little child.
Yeah.
And the elephants. But I also remember them chained, and that really upset me.
Yes.
I couldn't. That didn't make any sense to me because I saw them as being very gentle and very, they weren't doing anything that I could see that they deserved to be chained up.
Yes.
But I guess to the best of my ability, it would have been any of the cats and elephants.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yes, the elephants, we had those elephant rides at Taronga Zoo when we were kids. I mean, thankfully things are changing at the rate of knots, thankfully. But I remember as a child thinking to myself, they're really big. If they wanted to run off and run over everybody, they could just do it. But they never did. They carried children with such, I guess, submission in a lot of ways. But I believe there was also empathy because they knew they had children on board. These beautiful, beautiful beings. But we could talk about elephants another time. So you've grown, you've gone through your years and I believe you went on a different path than animals.
Well, in the beginning, because I closed it all down, I just tried to fit in and do the things that were expected of me, right? In school and, sports and whatever. And the way I channeled my intuition was actually through music and theater. I could channel that creative part of me, that ability to sort of shift and see things in a different way can work for you in theater, right? And and music. So that was sort of my creative outlet, but things didn't really come back to me until I started therapy in my 20s for the usual stuff, dealing with your parents and all that. And that's when I discovered that at some point, maybe when Dusty died, I had taken all my feminine intuitive, that really important part of me, and put her aside. I had to push her away. And in therapy, it was really important for me to reintegrate her. And as I did, I welcomed, it was kind of like inner child work, loving your inner child and telling her you're there for her and all that. In that process, I started to feel and perceive the trees in a whole different way. The trees first. And I had a dog, and at the time I was like, I'm starting to perceive differently, and I know my cat and I were communicating, and I would try to talk to William, and when he was a naughty teacher because I would concentrate, and as soon as my concentration wandered, he'd say something. And I'd be like, or he'd send me a message. He wasn't speaking, of course. He was sending me a telepathic message. And I would go, whoa, wait a minute, I missed that. And he said, you weren't concentrating. So, so he gave me a hard time in the beginning. But I learned Reiki, and I started offering Reiki to animals at my vet. I didn't tell her a word about wanting to listen and see if I could grow this third ear, if you will, that I was, that was happening for me. But things just started to happen and come to me. And the vet said, "Can you find out what's wrong with this cat? Because we have no idea why she won't eat." And I did. I found out what was going on, and then everything just snowballed. That led me to become a professional, including getting the front page of the Sunday paper in the town of Santa Fe was about me. And,
wow.
So it was meant to be. I was meant to continue on that path and devote myself to the animals and continue to learn and grow. And it's been a labor of love and a journey of miracles and incredible experiences ever since.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. I feel the word magic, but it's more than that. Because magic denotes illusion, but this is not an illusion. It's like another world when you enter the world of animals, the animal kingdom and the nature kingdom, and you realize that, it's a bit almost cliche now, oh, we're all one, but we actually are. And when you tap into that, it's like you come alive. You feel alive. You feel not just this lump of human, you actually have this incredible feeling of, aliveness is the word that comes to me. And it is magic. It really is. You've got so much going on. I want to ask you the worst question that you could be asked. How would you describe your work to someone who is completely new to it? Now, you're going to have to take a moment to think about this because you do so much. But the general field of what you do, how would you, if I came to you and said, oh, Kate, I heard that you're an animal communicator and you do this and do that. How can you help me with my cat? Because I don't know what's going on. What would you say to that person?
I'd say, well, first, I'm really grateful that you are interested in learning about what I do, and that what I do is something that all of us have an aptitude for. But it is kind of like a muscle that is, if it's not used, it kind of atrophies. But if you exercise it and you practice, you too can do what I do. But I practice every day with it. So that's why it works so well for me and works so quickly. But what I then will do is I will connect heart to heart and mind to mind with your animal who doesn't speak the way we do, but who thinks and feels and who has things going on in their body that they can share with me, so that I am able to do what is often what a medical intuitive does, which is scan the body and get a sense, sometimes pictures, of what might be out of balance, or if where there's a lack of blood flow or energy, that can show up as a dark spot, like on an X-ray, and that can be interpreted by doctors in one way. But I would say there's not something, there's an energy blockage, or there's something there that's stuck, or and so I would explain, and I would ask, what is going on with your cat? What can you share with me about? And then explain that that's how I do. I sit with her, either her picture or with her in person, and just allow her to share with me. So I open to receive. I'm not doing anything. I'm actually, if you're looking at the yin and the yang symbol, yang is the doing principle, the action. The yin is the receiving. And that's what we really are, right? We're receivers. And that is a feminine quality, right? In the yin is the receiver. And so it's really working that whole part of us that is the receiver. And that's how I do it.
And do you often find, or do you ever find that the majority or some of the time, the issues with the animal is often their person?
Oh, yes. Yes. But it's interesting because when a person comes to us as communicators, one of the things that's special is that they believe their animal can communicate something to them, and they need a translator. And that is a step above a lot of people, right? So if the animal is taking on something for their person or mirroring something for their person, usually that person is more open to that than somebody who had gone to the vet to find out, what pill should I give my cat because she keeps throwing up. And the vet can't say, well, the reason your cat keeps throwing up is because your cat has an ulcer and you do too. And so the best way for your cat to get better is for you to address your ulcer. The vet's never going to say that. We can say that, right? Because and often our clients will say, before you even say, if your vet has shown that there's an ulcer here and she's not getting better, and the person will then say, wow, my ulcer keeps flaring up too.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to say much to help them go, oh, aha.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it, when we realize that so much of the animal's issues, not all the time, but in many, many cases, belong to the people. And it's very healthy to acknowledge also that people are very open, seem to be more open now to this work. which is absolutely lovely. I believe that you are a founding member of a body called the International Professional Animal Communicators Association, which is known as IPACA. Now, this is a very, very important and I feel crucial platform for global animal communicators. Tell me a little bit about IPACA and what it represents and how it can help both its members and also the general public.
Oh, thank you. Yes, this is a project that started about a little over a year ago, and it's brought together animal communicators from all over the world, which has been just a joy, and people who have been teachers or practitioners for many, many years. And we've all come together, put a lot of egos aside, which is miraculous in itself. And all of us are like entrepreneurs. We've done our own thing all these years. And we've all come together because we felt this is the moment to support people who want to be professionals, people who want to help people with their animals or work with wild animals, to establish a level of ethics and standardization of the highest we can each be of ourselves, the best we can be. And that, as you say, is going to support our profession, but will also support the general public, because as we get our logo and our website out there and we create a platform that supports up-and-coming communicators at every level, when we do that, we become an organization that scientists and academics can go to and say, okay, these people have come together with authority and agreement to ethics and standards. And so if we want to work with other communicators, we can depend on them. We can look to them for, because they have this level of experience, or, they can look for who has worked with whales and for how long, or who just works with dogs and cats and they have this training or this perspective or this experience. And so it becomes a way for those folks, as well as the general public, to find people who are coming from the highest and best of who they are. That's
authentic.
Really what we want to support.
Yeah,
yes,
the authentic people. Yeah, because the difficulty with animal communication is I'm an absolute stickler for evidence and validation, and if it's a person, you can say, well, I think that you're feeling this or you're doing that, and as a person, the human being can say, well, no, that's wrong, or yes, that's right. When you're working with an animal and you're providing information to their person, it's not always 100% provable, especially if it's an emotional concern. And so this is the thing that I feel IPACA is crucial for, because it gives people the confidence that the animal communicator they're working with has been recognized as an authentic animal communicator, rather than someone saying, oh, look, your cat's a bit sad today, you owe me $100. It's not good enough. I think this is a really good thing. Will this cover Australia and other territories of the world, or is IPACA essentially based, it comes out of the United States, or it's based in the United States, but does it cover other territories?
Absolutely. That's why it's the International Professional Animal Communicator Association. And right now we have members of our steering committee who, our workforce, who are from Singapore and South Africa and Greece and, different parts of Europe and Mexico and Ecuador and Peru and Brazil and then North America. And so absolutely, we really want to serve those communities everywhere in the world and join together as a global presence, because as you mentioned in the beginning, we all are one, and to have this global participation is critical that we support everyone in every country who is striving to do their best for the animals and the planet.
I think that's brilliant. And I've spoken to some animal communicators who tend to feel the same thing. I know I experienced it within my own work, when all I wanted to do was help animals. And the message I got was, we're fine, help the people. help the people, because it's the people that have the say over dominion over us, and so if you change the people's perspectives or awaken the people to the truth of our existence in terms of our abilities in telepathy and interspecies communications, that's going to change things. That will change things. Talking to us is wonderful and helpful, but it's not going to make the big difference. Only people can do that. And I found that super interesting, a little disappointing, because I thought, oh, darn, I wanted to, help the animals, and the animals are like, we're fine. But I find what's also interesting at the moment too is the what's happening with the dolphins and the whales, these superpods. This has been happening for a few years now. And dolphins and whales have hung out together before, but especially humpbacks in these massive numbers. And humpbacks essentially are pretty much loners in their journeys and travels. So do you know, Kate, what's happening there with these water beings?
Well, that's a question. I have not recently talked to them about it. I think it would be a wonderful, that's a whole nother episode we could do, is connecting with them and discussing this. But from my work with the Harmony Pack, and as you say, the animals will say, we really are fine. And why are they fine? Because they've never forgotten their connection to the whole. They've never forgotten their heart connection to Mother Earth and their role in the environment. And our problem is our separation, our removing of ourselves emotionally, physically, mentally from our animal and plant family. Jane Goodall just said this, it was lovely when you said, the animals said, you guys need to get your act together. Jane said the same thing recently, where she was talking about when she flew over Gombe, she saw that the human population was encroaching, and she realized we have to help the people. We have to help them with a way to live without destroying the forest. We have to help restore that relationship, because unless they do, the chimps will just be overrun, and there'll be conflicts, and it'll be terrible. So that's part of what she did, was she worked to create a better situation of collaboration on the land and with the land for the people to prosper. But that's balance, right? And that is what they are really teaching us or sharing with us. And this happens with my Harmony Pack, because we will choose, or they'll come to me sometimes that we don't choose. And the animals, so I refer to it as a council. So this past month of October, we've been working with the Council of Butterflies. And the butterflies are bringing messages to our group that will help them in their lives. They talked about dreaming. They said, we are the keepers of dreams. And they talked about how a dream is like a caterpillar that goes into chrysalis. And in that chrysalis, the dream forms. And some dreams stay there a long, long time. And other dreams come forth and are transformative. Some are big dreams, some are little dreams. But the dreaming and the ability to connect in that way is really important for humans, because it makes us present. It makes us thinking about how we can be in the world. What is our purpose? What are we here for? And that is part of the teachings of the animal councils, is different suggestions and even meditations that help people get back in touch with who they are and their connection with the teachings of that particular species, but also connecting to the whole, and then going out in the world and being their best selves. So it's exactly what you said, is we have to find different ways of waking ourselves up, of healing ourselves of the hurt, the pain, the separation, so that we remember who we truly are. And that's where the earth gets, quote unquote, saved, meaning the earth is going to be fine. I mean, life on earth is the problem because of our behavior towards it, right?
Yeah.
But if we remember, as Jane said once upon a time, she said, well, if we accept that animals are sentient, we have to look at how we treat them. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. And I think more people are becoming aware, because we are more animal communicators are emerging and speaking about that these beings are sentient. They communicate all the time to us, all the time. And they're in the present moment. And I think what you were saying about separateness, we are the most separated species on the planet, not only from other human beings, but from ourselves. We're somewhat clueless. We've lost our intuition. We've lost our sense of purpose. We've lost our knowledge of ourselves being spirit, having a soul with a human experience. We think this lump of meat is the be-all and end-all. And if you think about it logically, and I'm not the most logical person on the planet, but if you think about it logically, what would be the point? If we weren't here to experience, to learn, to gather information, to grow spiritually, to understand what life on this planet is about for all of us. These guys aren't freeloaders. This isn't our planet and they just turned up and what are you doing here? They own this place as much as we can own anything. You know, none of us own Earth. If she decides to flick 30 degrees on her axis, we're all stuffed. But, you know, we think we own it, but we don't. We're here together and I feel we're moving towards a good thing. At the moment, I feel like we're in the middle of a real muck pile because we're awakening. Even the sleepers are going, hold on a minute, some of this is not right. Something's not right here. This is not what I'm feeling and what I'm living are two different things. And I love how people are becoming more aware of their animals. We've still got people that have this separation thing, but people, I find, Kate, people that are separate from the animals and separate from nature are the most separate from themselves.
Absolutely.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so this is what this is all about. Enlightened Connections is all about talking to people about the realization and the opening up of connection with each other, with the animals who are our equals, our brothers and our sisters. We're no mightier than, we're no weaker than. We are one, all of us, and their planet is as much as ours, so on and so forth. So that's an absolute tangent that I could go off on, but I don't really want to do that. I wanted to know, you know, how do animals, you've talked about how animals share their messages through telepathy, and we all have that, right? You know, there isn't a human being on Earth that hasn't heard the phone ring and go, oh, that's Auntie Joan. And then you pick it up and it's Auntie Joan. You think, oh, I already knew that. So we've got that. But how do animals share their role as healers for us? And do you have any stories from any sessions that you've done with clients to show that they're actually here to help us?
Oh my goodness. So many, Lisa. And again, as we touched on briefly before, one of the ways they help their people heal is by mirroring that problem, like the ulcer I was talking about earlier, right? And what's fascinating about that I've seen, and I'm sure you have too, is that the person has been putting off taking care of themselves for a long, long time, right? Mm. That's why it's an ulcer. But when they find out their animal has it, and the very best way to help their animal, because the animals usually say this, is for them to help themselves. They'll do it. They're finally motivated because their animal is suffering, like parents are with children, that they would do anything for that kid. They might not do it for themselves. But when their beloved animal is suffering, then they are going to address their problem and their, the physical manifestation. Or it could be an emotional situation. It could be a relationship situation. I did have a cat that ran away from home, and he basically said to his person, "You and I both know that this relationship you're in is not good for you." And that's kind of tough information to share sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But I trust the animal. I don't want to do it myself. I let the animal come through me with that. And we talked a little bit about telepathy, which is a thought-to-thought transfer. There's also pictures, which we can refer to as clairvoyance, or just a knowing, clairsentience. Some people hear voices. That's clairaudience. And when people, say, well, this is a lot of hooey, you say, do we name things that don't exist?
Right.
We don't. So we name clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, clairaugustus, right? They exist. or we
Right.
wouldn't have named them. So that's another fun little logic thing to play with people. But he wouldn't come home, and she hemmed and hawed, and she said, I know he's right, and I'll work on it. Well, time went on, and time went on, and time went on. 6 months, which blew me away, that he was out in a very tough part of New Mexico. He was a black cat, and New Mexico, he was in a part of New Mexico that's very dry with scrubby trees. If he'd been a tabby, it'd have been easy to hide, but there were coyotes around and hawks and owls, and it was amazing that he was hanging out as long as he was. 6 months went by, and she called me and she said, I got it. I told him to leave. I was done. And she said, I don't know that Jet will come back, but I just want you to let him know that I'm done. The very next day, he shows back up.
Get out. You're kidding.
No, and it had been 6 months, and he was skinny and a little scrawny, but he just walked up to the door and was like, yep, I told you I'd be back when you dumped that.
Wow.
And she stayed away from the guy, and he was happy as a clam, and all was restored.
Yeah.
So
they know what's best for us, don't they? Better than we know
Yes.
what's best for ourselves.
Often they do. So many stories about that.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I find it interesting too. You don't do lost animals, and I get that. I totally get that. But isn't it interesting how when these cases come up, there's usually a change in the family. It could be a baby coming in, it could be they're moving house, it could be a relationship breaking down, and the animals are like, okay, time to pack the bag, move on and find somewhere else to go or do something else. And people freak out, especially cats. And cats are notorious for the 72-hour rule. Don't freak out and give it 72 hours, because they're usually like 72 hours is our modus operandi. We'll be back after that, right? What is that thing with 72 hours? It's like dogs get lost because they just, they want to know everything, and they go on this journey and they think, uh-oh, it's been 5 hours. I think I don't know where I am anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, dogs get lost, but I don't think cats ever get lost. I think cats just get annoyed with things and they need time out, and that's it. So that people go, oh, my cat's been gone 8 hours. It's like, no, give it another 14 and then call me back, And sure as eggs.
Oh,
the cat came back. Yeah, I thought... That's of course unless nothing terrible has happened to the cat, but they're notorious for that. So I wanted to ask you, how can someone that wants to know, how can I have a better connection? I'm not an animal communicator. I don't know where to begin, but I want to know. I want to know something. Where do I start to develop something? How do I open that door? What would you say to them?
So, well, the first thing is to learn to quiet your mind a little bit, to learn to focus. And that's not hard if you start with just focus on your breath, right? You focus on your breath and you get into your body, because our minds take us out of our bodies all the time. We're thinking about something that has to happen tomorrow or next week or next month, or something that happened 10 years ago. We have a very difficult time being present, whereas animals are present most of the time. They don't think about yesterday or tomorrow unless there was a traumatic experience yesterday. But mostly they're very here in the present. So the first thing is to experience, what is that like for you when you're quiet and paying attention to breathing? And then as you practice that, you begin to learn that you can quiet the mind. If you're thinking about something, you can let it go like a cloud. You don't try to stuff it. You just go, okay, thank you, let it pass. And the more you practice that, and you can also practice focusing on a candle or something like that, you begin to calm your nervous system. You begin to quiet your mind, and that creates space. It creates space to receive. And that receiving only comes in when you're quiet. You can't receive if you're chasing something or running away from it or just racing around. You're not in a receptive mode. So you have to find out, how do you get quiet enough to listen, and not just with your ears, but with your heart. Listen with your heart and open it to allow somebody else to share a tiny thought with you or a big thought. And I've often said to when I'm teaching, it's like once you in that quiet space, think that you're holding a big basket in front of you. Focus on this basket and just let it be empty. And then something may drop in there, and just observe it and don't judge it. But especially when we first begin to get a sense from someone else, a message, we tend to analyze it or push it away or say it's my imagination. That is the death of the intuition. So what you need to do is just acknowledge it, right? Maybe writing it down is really good because that's making it physical, right? And I talk about intuition as like a little seed. And as you are doing this breathing practice and focusing, that little seed starts to come up through the dirt. But as soon as you go, oh no, I'm just making that up, you're squishing it back down into the dirt. But the way you water it and nurture it is to go, that's interesting. And again, you may feel like, well, how do I know it's not just me? Don't even think about it. Just let it be. And then start writing them down. Start saying, oh, I got this feeling or I got this thought. Write them down. Make them grounded. And if you get a message from your animal like, oh, my stomach hurts, explore that. Have they thrown up somewhere? Have they, if you go and you touch them, are they, do they jump away like, oh, don't touch my tummy? That's proof in the pudding, right? It's like, oh, wow, I got something because my cat is now showing me or my dog is now showing me that area is uncomfortable. Well, that's step number one. Step number two may be to again, do I need to take him to the vet? How tender is this place? And you can be, but it's acting on it. It's grounding it in real terms by writing it down or acting on it. As I said, go put your hand on them and say, is this hurting you? That's how you help it grow and help it develop.
And you can sometimes get a feeling in your own body as well.
Yes.
If you're more that way inclined, more clairsentient than receiving pictures, as the clairvoyant does. There's different ways of receiving these messages, isn't there? But as you say, the key is to be still, be still, be still, be still. And be open. And meditation is also an excellent way to get into that space, isn't it?
Oh,
it's crucial.
Absolutely. Any type of meditation. That's why I say if it's just meditating on a candle at first, because people say, oh, I can't meditate because they think they have to sit there like a Tibetan monk for 2 hours. No. No, there's moving meditations. If you're out in the forest or you're out in the park or you're walking down the street, you can just listen to the wind in the trees, listen to the birds. That's a moving meditation because you're paying attention. Isn't meditation really paying attention presence. In a different way?
Yeah, It's presence, isn't it? It's present. It's being in the present moment, which is exactly where the animals are in that present moment.
Yeah, get rid of the darn phone, right? You see everybody walking their dog and they're on their phone now.
Yeah.
Right? It's crazy. It's like, be with your dog. Let your dog show you about how wonderful the smells are over here or, how much they are loving rolling in the grass. Be with your dog. If you want to learn how to communicate better, be with them. Don't be distracted by all this other stuff that we are creating around us. That's disconnection.
That's a big problem. I see people doing that with their kids as well. They're just sitting there with their phones and their little ones could be running off anywhere and they wouldn't know. It is a concern, but we're talking about being with the animals today. So there's so much I want to talk to you about. I would like to know what changes you'd like to see in the way people view animals and view healing and view their place in the world. What would you like to see and how do you think that might happen?
Oh, that's a lovely question, Lisa. I think the first step is to feel what it was like to love an animal when you were a little child, or today, loving your animal. One of my very favorite quotes is by Anatole France, who was a French philosopher, and he said, until one has been loved by an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened. I love that. And so learning to be in that love with your animal, a cat on your lap purring, your dog bringing you a toy or cuddling up with you on the couch, or licking your face, and just you are the center and the most beloved being in the world. Being in that loving space is the most important thing for you to do as often as possible. Right. That's what the world needs, is our love, and and that love is connection. Love is the opposite of separation. Love is connection. And that is where everything begins. It may sound cliche, but if we really are in a unified field, and that's what the physicists are finding, it's a unified field, that if we are, what is unifying us? What is it? Certain fields are perhaps fed by fear and others by anger. But the healing takes place when we are in love with that flower in the garden, that rose that is finally bloomed and is exquisite, and that robin on that branch, or that beautiful little blue-tongued lizard who's just sitting there happy to be near you. How joyful is that? How wonderful is that?
It's very special. It's very, very special. It's very special. Just being in the presence of any animal is a gift and a blessing, even if they're just passing by. They don't have to be a spirit guide or mum that's passed over 5 years ago. They can just be them, who they are. And that their presence alone just brings such knowledge and emotion. Different animals bring different experiences if you just be open. One of my favorite movies when I was a little kid was the original Dr. Dolittle with Rex Harrison. And I remember, I take it you've seen that movie.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of like the animal communicator's Bible, but in the visual sense. And there was a scene where he was on the edge of the cliff with Sophie the seal. Oh, my God. I cried. I went home crying. Mom, Sophie's in trouble. And she's like, who, what? Well, this absolutely shattered me. And not to mention Bambi. I saw the movie Bambi. Well, that devastated me for years, because I feel that when you have this awakened within you, you can't help but be empathic. You must be an empath to feel the animals. Maybe that's just my perspective, but I believe the more empathic you are, the more awakened you are, the more alert you are, the more sensitive you are to who they are, right? But being an empath isn't all sunshine and lollipops. There's also the suffering side of it, which it takes, as you would know, it can take a very long time to come back from some of that work. So that's something that I admire about animal communicators as well. We also have to deal with that side of things, the suffering. I was covering this with a previous guest who's an expert in animal nutrition and animal acupuncture. And, she was saying to me that sometimes she gets those feelings from the animals that she works with. Animal communicator isn't her priority, her primary work, but it's become natural because it's through the work that she's done with the animals in the clinical practice. She's become empathic. Now she's being able to differentiate between her thoughts and her expertise and what the animals are giving her.
Wonderful.
Which is beautiful.
That's the practice. That's practice. And remember, it comes from a desire, a loving desire. Her loving desire led her to become an acupuncturist and nutritionist for animals. It wasn't something she did for money. It was something she did for love. And in that space of love and loving the animals, that it opens her up. And she wants to know more. She wants to be able to help. And that desire is very powerful.
Yeah.
And that's important for people to continue to honor that and to strive to build that. One of my dear friends, Anna Twinney, was a police officer who loved animals and went to a workshop and couldn't believe what people were receiving. But she felt in her heart she could do this, but she had to find her way. And it wasn't easy because she had developed that left brain, if you will, that very analytical side of herself, and had neglected her empathic, sensitive side, and she had to remember it, recover it, kind of like I did too, in a different way. I never was that left brain, but yeah, she had to remember it again and restore it and nurture it, like that little flower I was talking about. She had to work on that hard, but it was her great desire and her love of animals that kept her working at it. And as I say, some people, I mean, I'm very lucky that I was born with it. I remember that I had it as a child, even though I pushed it away. Whereas other people are like, I want to do this. I don't remember ever doing it, but I love animals so much. They have to work harder at it. And I have great admiration for them, just like a pianist. Some people can just sit down and play the piano and you're just blown away. And others become great because they practice and they practice and they practice because they love it. And it means it touches them. And that's what makes us the best of our human nature is that love and that desire to be part of something beautiful. If it's music, be part of the community of people that we care about, be part of helping whomever, whether it's the land, the ocean, the air, and of course the animals and the plants. So that's where we're evolving to. Like you say, we're in this mess right now because this is like the worst of the birthing pains, and many teachers have talked about this for many, many centuries, and we're in it, and it's not pretty. But that's why those of us who get this must keep holding to the love and holding to this. We know we're connected. We know we are really at one with these other. They are our kin. They are our family. Whether they're mycelium in the soil, communicating for all the plants and trees and sending out all that information and creating this incredible symphony in the forest together with all of the plants and animals and microorganisms, or whether it's a herd of elephants, or whether it's people working with animals who they deeply love. It's awareness that's growing and it's blossoming, and I love that.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. Kate, if you could share just one message from the animals you've worked with, just one message that the world needs right now, what would it be?
They want us to remember that we are family with them. We're all family. And they do continue to tell us that. We're different expressions of divinity. And that is divine love expressed in all these myriad forms on this planet, which is a miracle. But we are all part of that same circle of life.
That's beautiful. Well, Kate Solisti, thank you very, very much for joining me today on Enlightened Connections. It's been eye-opening, it's been beautiful, it's been informative. I thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and your skills and your knowledge. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. It's just been lovely being with you and talking about this stuff that's so dear to both of our hearts. And hopefully reaching more and more people with your lovely podcast, more people who are looking to know this, to remember this. So thank you so, so much for doing this.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you so much, Kate. You take care and we'll speak again soon, no doubt.
Thank you. Lots of love, Lisa. Bye.
You too. Bye.
And if you'd like to get in touch with Kate, you can reach her through her website at katesolisti.com. That's KATESOLISTI.com. Thanks for listening to Enlightened Connections. Remember, healing is a journey for both people and animals, and every connection brings us closer to understanding. So until next time, may light and connection guide your path.